Hello, and welcome to the third episode of Cocktails with a Twist of History, your digital destination for all things cocktails. Today we're going to be making a cocktail called the Blood and Sand. Now, the Blood and Sand was based on a movie called, yes, you got it, The Blood and Sand. It was from 1922, and it featured an actor called Rudolph Valentino. He was considered one of the hot actors at the time, and it was a blockbuster movie. It really was crazy for at the time. It broke all attendance records, and Rudolph Valentino actually said it was one of his best movies. It was produced by a relatively new company called Paramount Pictures. They started making movies in 1916. Really, they were incorporated a little bit before that, but this movie came out in 1922. Now, it was one of the best-selling movies, and it was done in 1922, which was a time when a lot of the population was starting to gain a little bit of wealth, and they were willing to spend it. And they would go to some of the nicer hotels, a lot of times in New York, and they would go to the bar. The bar sometimes had a very famous bartender. The one that we know this cocktail from is a guy named Harry Craddock. He wrote it in a book in 1930 called the Savoy Cocktail Book. And we don't know if he actually made this cocktail, if he was the one that invented it, but Harry liked to make cocktails with very interesting ingredients, and this one does have interesting ingredients. Okay, so I've been talking way too long without a cocktail in my hand. Let's get to making our cocktail. This is a Scotch-based cocktail, and this is a shaken one. I know you've been saying, hey, when is this guy going to start shaking things instead of stirring? Today's the day. So we're going to use our Scotch. Now, actually in this time period, they like to make cocktails with a lot of different ingredients, but they all had the same ratio or the same amount in each one. And so this one is 3/4 of an ounce of a whole bunch of different ingredients. So we're going to get to it. This is 3/4 of an ounce of Scotch. I'm actually going to use a little bit more than that because I tend to like mine a little bit heavier on the alcohol. So, okay. Now we're going to use something called cherry herring. Not herring, but herring. And that is a cherry liqueur. And it also is 3/4 of an ounce. Here we go. It is a very intense, very heavy, very sweet also, but it's good. Now, this one also has sweet vermouth. Vermouth was used in a lot of cocktails at the time, and 3/4 of an ounce of the sweet vermouth. There we go. And the last thing that we use is orange juice. Orange juice is actually not used in that many cocktails, but this one definitely has. Here we go. A lot of different ingredients. We're going to put in our ice. Now this one needs a lot of ice because it gets shaken a lot. You want to have a froth on the top. So here we go. Put in all of our ice. And we're going to shake it up. Now, I always say when shaking a cocktail, always make sure to put your finger over here like this so it doesn't squirt out all over the place. And this needs to be shaken quite a bit so that it can really get that froth on the top. Hopefully you can hear me over the shaking. Yeah. Oh, always use a steel shaker because you can really feel, you can already see how it's already frosting over. There we go. Now, we are going to pour it into our glass. And you can see it's really done in a smaller cocktail glass called a coupe. This one is a little bit larger. This is a Nick and Nora size. We'll talk about those, what the differences are. And then we're going to have our orange peel, which we're going to squeeze on the top. The orange peels have an oil that gets released into it, and you can do like that. so that it gets all around and it goes inside. And cheers. Now that is an interesting cocktail. A little bit different. It's definitely not what you would call your standard taste. The scotch, the cherry, very, very interesting. Not my standard, by the way. It's not something that I would normally go for, but an interesting one nonetheless. Okay, so let's get back to our history. The Blood and Sand, the film, was about a poor boy from a village who went to become a matador, one of the famous matadors in Spain. And Blood and Sand actually has very little to do with the movie itself. There's a little piece at the end. I won't ruin it for you just in case you want to go out and see the movie. But there are quite a few cocktails that are named after famous people or famous movies, because at the time, the actors would go to some of these bars, and if you named it after them, first of all, they would come to your bar more often, and it became, the cocktail became much more popular, which also means your bar became much more popular, and the bartender would become much more popular. And so that's why there are quite a few drinks that are named after these famous people. Anyway, this is the history that I think is the right one for this one. You may have heard different stories. If you did, like always, you can put it in the comments. You can email it to us. You can tell it to the bottle. We want to hear it. Also, if you like it, even if you don't like it, please follow, put something in the comments, hit the bell. We want to know you're out there so that we can come and bring you more history of cocktails with a twist of history. Thank you.